So I wanted to discuss how our conceptual model of Jiu Jitsu, our understanding of Jiu Jitsu changes so drastically from white belt into black belt and beyond black belt. The backdrop of today's video is the previous video I did with Professor Javier Vasquez. Javier is a 5th degree black belt in Jiu Jitsu, elite level guy, insanely skilled, very, very deep understanding of Jiu Jitsu. And I went and trained with him last week, and he said to me, the guard in Jiu Jitsu doesn't exist. And that became the title of the last video. A little hyperbolic, that statement. But what Javier explained in the last video was that if your conceptual model is correct, if your strategic model is correct, expressed by your positioning, your angles, and your points of connection, if those things are correct, it doesn't matter what type of guard someone uses against you, because essentially you're going to be able to circumvent all that. And I think that some people just didn't understand what he was talking about, because we got some interesting comments in that video. And so I thought I would try to provide some clarity today, because ultimately I think it's a discussion of how you think about Jiu Jitsu and what your model is for understanding Jiu Jitsu. So let's talk about it. By the way, if you're curious about any of the things that I'm involved with, the Jiu Jitsu camps and events and retreats that I run, the instructional courses we produce, the swag that we offer, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram or friend me on Facebook, you can find links to all those things in my link tree. I'll put it on the screen and I'll put the link in the description below. And also you should sign up for my mailing list at rickellis.com. That's the best way to stay totally up to date. I won't spam you, and you'll be in the loop so you won't miss out on anything that I'm involved with. All right, let's talk about what I'm calling the conceptual model of Jiu Jitsu and how that changes. So from white belt to purple belt, maybe even into brown belt a little bit, but it starts to change as you get close to black belt. It certainly changes at black belt and beyond. But white belt through purple belt, the way we learn Jiu Jitsu is a lot of if, then, what we call in programming conditional statements. If your opponent does this, you need to do that. If your opponent does that, you need to do this. And so over the years, what ends up happening is you create this gigantic flow chart in your head of all of the various attacks and all of the various counters to all of the attacks. And eventually you'll have hundreds of these things that you know. If someone tries a knee cut pass, you'll have an answer for that. If someone tries a collar choke, you have an answer for that. If someone tries to take your back, you have some answers for that. But what begins to happen as you get the black belt is you begin attempting to strip away and simplify the game of Jiu Jitsu, because by the time you're a black belt, you have been through 10,000 battles. You have wrestled against every possible body type, every age, every level of athleticism, every level of skill. And what you're looking to do as you become more skilled is to simplify the game so that you can be effective while doing less, right? That's the holy grail of Jiu Jitsu, maximum effectiveness with minimal effort. And that's a never-ending journey for most everybody. And so what you begin looking at as a black belt is, what are the commonalities between the techniques? People can pass the guard in many, many different ways, but what are the common elements, the elements that are common to all of those guard passes? There are a lot of ways to attack the joints in Jiu Jitsu, but what are the common elements necessary for getting the tap, the common elements necessary for denying the tap? And so you start looking at concepts and principles and strategies. Concepts is what allows you to invent techniques on the fly, and it's why a really skilled Jiu Jitsu practitioner can shut you down even if they don't know what it is that you're trying to do. They might not know the particular attack that you're trying to do, but they're operating on a conceptual level, and therefore they can simply stop your attack because they can stop any attack because they understand what it is that all of those attacks have in common. Well, this idea that we can make the guard vanish if we apply the right approach, that is something that you begin thinking about when you're pretty deep into your jiu-jitsu journey. And again, Javier is a 5th degree black belt. He's been a black belt longer than I've been training. And so he is so far down this road that he's able to look at the human body and answer the question, what do I need to do to simply make all the guards go away? Well, we do this. Now, the misunderstanding that I think some people had in the last video was that they thought he was just simply saying that if you apply this one simple trick, you can defeat anybody's guard, including Roger Gracie, which is absurd. I mean, that's ludicrous. He wasn't saying that because everything requires training. Everything requires some work to master the skill. I can give you a concept, and you might understand that concept easily, but it might take you a lot of training and a lot of practice working on your timing and your sensitivity so that you can run that conceptual model. And so when Javier says, if you position yourself at a certain angle, if you focus on controlling the bottom leg, if you do this and that and the other, all of the guards go away. Yeah, of course, he's right, but it's still a battle. Right? Because your opponent's going to be coming at you. They have 4 limbs and they're attacking and they've got energy and you're denying and you're fighting. It's not that it isn't a battle. It's just that your focus drastically changing to one of what is he trying to do? How can I deny this one thing that he's trying to do? To instead thinking, what is this entire category of things that he can do, and how can I deny those things? And so that becomes what you work on. And it takes mastery, it takes time, it takes skill. It's not magic. None of this stuff is magic, but it just shows that the focus changes over time. And so that's really what I wanted to explain here in this video. I don't have a lot more than that to talk about it. Other than to point out that for those that said, okay, then, well, let's see if Javier can defeat Roger Gracie's guard. Well, no, that's not what he was saying. That's not what he was saying. Javier's, an elite level guy, but he's not claiming that he's better than Roger Gracie. Absolutely not. What he's simply saying is that if you had a skill level that was approaching a Roger Gracie type skill level, that if you ran the right game plan, that you could nullify Roger Gracie's guard game. And I stand by, I agree with that, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to run that strategic game plan. But the earlier in your journey you can begin thinking that way, the better off you're ultimately going to be, because this whole, it's like a nuclear arms race where every day there's a new technique that emerges and you got to find the counter to that one. Oh, there's another technique to learn. You got to find the counter to that. That just becomes a zero-sum game where eventually you're going to spend your entire day studying just to keep up with every new innovation versus zooming out and saying, wait a second here, let's strip away this, strip away that, strip away this, strip away this. Let's leave the essence of jiu-jitsu, which are these principles. How many principles are there? I don't know. There's a lot of principles that I don't know. I'm discovering them as I go along. For example, I had an epiphany a couple years ago, I think, that if you can connect your hips to your opponent's hips when they have you in their closed guard and not let them separate their hips from yours, there's literally nothing they can do to you. They can't sweep you. They can't armbar you. They can't triangle choke you. There might be some collar chokes that you have to worry about, but that separation of the hips that separation is what allows them to pivot and to attack from guard, whereas if you can connect, and so that's an attachment principle. So a lot of times when I'm in someone's closed guard, I will simply attach to their hips so that they can't even begin to set up any of the attacks that they're thinking about. And instead, I have some ways of opening and passing the guard that I can implement because I'm running that particular strategy. And it lets me be more global in my approach and my opponents to be more specific in their approach because they're operating on the if-then, model of jiu-jitsu, whereas I'm trying to operate on the globalized conceptual model of jiu-jitsu. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. I didn't really fully plan this video out. It was just an idea I had today. I was reading some of the comments in the last video and I thought, man, I think some of the people, they just aren't quite understanding what we're talking about here. So I hope that helps. If you have questions or want to comment on this video, you know where to do it below, and I look forward to talking to you next time.